Good Thursday evening, everybody. It's Thursday, September 30th, 2021. I'm Jeremy Crosby. Andrew's in the back office, control room, data center, whatever you want to say. And we're here and we're ready to rock and roll. Data center sounds cool. I don't know. Control rooms, the booth. You know, those are the normal terms.
Yep.
The data center. Sounds better. That's all right. We got a really busy show coming up here. Andrew's been working hard today. Only today. Every other day, it's kind of up in the air. But today, he's been working hard for you. And really, he's been editing because the Historical Society is taking over the show today on a two-parter. We're going to be talking about real estate and how that's been affected since COVID-19 had begun. It continues the series. Catherine from the Historical Society has been interviewing a whole bunch of people about the response, what's been happening in Fitchburg during that. It's going to be great. It's a very timely piece, of course, but also for history later on. It'll be fun to go back and look at these stories that were told during this time. So excited for that. We'll have a two-parter here and talking with First Weber today. So we'll check in and have that at a two-parter coming up. So that's it. I just got to do headlines and I'm out. So let's go right into the headlines. And happening here right after the show, in fact, you have the Parks Plan 10-year update, open house and public meeting. That starts at 6:30, goes till 8:30 tonight in the Common Council chambers. City staff will be gathering feedback from all interested parties on the plan update at the open house tonight. The open house, again, starts at 6:30 to 7, and then 7 o'clock scheduled for feedback opportunities. So tune in for that. If you haven't already and you want to register to speak via online, you can do that through sending an email to Scott Endel. And if you want to just watch it, tune over to our Gov channel right after the show. It'd be perfect timing. You get to watch all this and then jump right over there. We got you covered in the and everything tonight. Love it. And as a special note, of course, we'll rebroadcast this as well. So if you can't make it, don't worry. We'll start over. We will replay it. It starts over and replay it. You get it. All right, Post Roads shots fired incident. This happening on Wednesday, September 29th, around 8:45 p.m. Fitchburg officers responded to the apartment complex lot in the 2300 block of Post Road for a report of property damage. Investigating officers learned that caller's car had sustained damage from several bullet holes. At least one round also struck a 24-unit apartment building. No injuries were reported as a result of the incident. Investigators believe the incident likely occurred a few hours before the initial call Wednesday morning, sometime between 1:30 a.m. and 2 a.m. No calls were received regarding gunshots at the time they likely occurred. The investigation has revealed that the unoccupied vehicle was the intended target of the shooter. No suspect information or description is available for release. The investigation remains open. No arrests have been made, and no other further information is available at this time. Anyone with information regarding this incident is encouraged to contact the Fitchburg Police Department at 270-4300. Tipsters can remain anonymous by calling the Madison Area Crime Stoppers. That's 608-266-6014, or visiting p3tips.com to send in any tips. And we have all of that information, by the way, is at our website, fitchburgwi.gov. Click on Public Safety in the Police Department, and you can get all the different ways to submit tips there. So if you got any information, please pass it along. We have an update on the Curry Court shooting that occurred the other night around, and this is the update here, around 9:35 p.m. on Tuesday, September 28th. Fitchburg police officers and emergency medical personnel responded to an apartment in the 5100 block of Curry Court for a report of a person who had been shot. The victim, an 11-year-old girl, was transported to a local hospital where she was pronounced deceased. A 15-year-old was taken into custody and transported to the Dane County Jail, where he was booked on a tentative charge of first-degree reckless homicide. The investigation remains open. There's no further information to be released at this time, and the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office is continuing its investigation, and the victim's name will not be released at this time. All right, other news, Clean Sweep household hazardous waste drop-off event is coming up. This is going to be an event that's held on Saturday, October 23rd from 8 a.m. to noon at the parking lot at Marketplace Drive behind Funk's Pub in Oak Bank. This is an opportunity to properly dispose of paints, household chemicals, and hazardous material waste that shouldn't be placed in your curbside garbage bins. The event is put on by Dane County Clean Sweep, the Madison Metropolitan Sewer District, and the Madison Area Municipal Storm Water Partnership. If you want more information, you can go to our website. We've got all that information. And guess what? Andrew shares the links, as he always does when he posts up these headlines, so you can check that out there. All right, that does it for our headlines. Coming up next, we open up our digest and guest segment, a two-parter where we have the Historical Society sharing information about real estate since COVID-19 happened and is still going on. We'll have that for you next right here on Talking Pittsburgh.
It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so follow guidance from authorities where you live and stay home unless absolutely necessary. Use a delivery service for essential items like food and medicine. If you must make essential trips, stay 6 feet apart from other people. Wear a cloth face covering and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us.
Ready!
That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu. And especially this year, no one has time to get sick. Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
This is Catherine Schneider from the Fitchburg Historical Society, and we are continuing our series of visiting with people from the Fitchburg community, business, education, government, and finding out how COVID has really impacted their what they're doing in Fitchburg and the Fitchburg community. And so this afternoon, we are so pleased to welcome Pam Berschbach from First Weber Realty. So I'm just going to ask Pam, first of all, if she could do a little introduction of herself and tell us a little bit about her background in real estate, and then what her professional experience has been like, maybe particularly in Fitchburg.
I'd love to. So I've been in real estate since January of '99, always with First Weber. And our office wasn't always in Fitchburg. We didn't move to our office, our present office, until I believe it was 2003. And otherwise we were in Whitney Way area and then moved out here. And I started managing our First Weber offices. I managed 4 of them in 2018. And so I sold real estate for 22 years. My now 23-year-old son was 6 months old. And so kind of worked through that career with young children and raised them along with learning about real estate. So it was very good.
Great. And then Pam, we've been dealing with COVID now for about a year and a half. This is September of 2021, and really began to really explode in the United States, maybe March of 2020. So in that time frame, could you give us just a sense maybe of the real estate market's movement?
Sure. So I think with COVID, one of the beauties of COVID is we all learned how important our personal spaces are and what we need to feel secure. And so, which really has to do with housing, whether you're an apartment dweller or you own your own home or you rent a home, whatever it is. But we realized, okay, if I'm going to work from home, is it just me working from home? Is it me and my husband working from home? And if you have children, are they at home? Well, everybody was at home. And if you don't have the spaces in your home to make that work for everybody to be on their computer at the same time and not hear one another, then everybody started realizing, okay, my space isn't working. So how am I going to make my space work? And so what we found is we had a slight slowdown early on when COVID first hit, and we were like, well, what do we do with this? And there was just a slight bump in the road, I would say, but we realized Our buyers, our clients were still saying to us, this isn't going to work for me. I got to get a bigger home because we're all at home and I don't see my kids going back to school for a while. Or maybe they don't have good internet, because not every place in Dane County has good internet. And you need good internet to work from home or have a school system at home. So we were consistently busy all the way through. And we probably had about a week where the WRA, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, and most of us as real estate firms were trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do showings? How are we going to do this effectively and safely for all parties? And it took us probably a week, and we figured it out that we all must wear masks. Everybody that's in a home must have a mask on, gloves on, booties, and lights were all left on in the homes. So they were there when we got there for showings. We left them on when we left. Nothing was touched. Only the real estate agents with their gloves on would open up doors or cupboards or anything along those lines. The buyers could not touch anything. And only one party at a time in a house. And so that worked fabulously. Now, there's certainly certain sellers and certain buyers that they just didn't want to go into a house, and they didn't even want to meet their realtor, and they certainly didn't want to meet a stranger. So what would happen is we, the agents, would go into the house and we'd video it and talk with them as we video. And that's how people bought homes. And so it was, which is just crazy to think about, of course, but we've done it before that way if we needed to. And a lot of people that were moving here were moving from out of state. They didn't have to work from home anymore. And so it was cheaper to move from California to Wisconsin. We had a huge surge from California coming here because they could work here and get paid for their job in California and sell their expensive home in California. So we had an awful lot of that going on. And then, of course, what happened with apartment dwellers is, did they even feel safe in an apartment? Did they want to be in shared spaces, in common areas? They didn't want to touch the banisters. They didn't want to touch the elevator buttons. So it was a bit fearful for some people. And so I think that it took a little while for people to figure out, okay, if I'm not going to stay in my apartment, then I must find a home. And so we had a little bit more of a surge in July, August, September of 2020, because it was warm enough. We could be outside. We had it all figured out as far as for easy showings and how to handle the showings. And so we had a really strong surge. If you take a look at numbers from 2019 to 2020 for July, August, and September. And even now that we're in 2021 and we're comparing our numbers now from 2021 to 2020, those are hard months to beat because they were so strong. So that's when apartment dwellers said, I'm getting out of here, I'm finding a home. And so we had an awful lot of that. The other thing that we've seen an awful lot of is if it's people that have multiple homes. Maybe they have a home in Madison and they have a home in Tomahawk, and they don't need to show up to their job here in Madison any longer. So sell their house in Madison because we have higher taxes, and live in Tomahawk, and they can work there. So we're seeing, and we're still seeing some of that a little bit. And I think we will for a little while, because nobody really knows what's going to happen with their jobs yet. Will we have to show up to work, or will we be able to work from home, or will we have a hybrid? So that's kind of what we're seeing. Yeah, I think I covered that mostly. I'd have to say the question that most of our agents asked our clients, our buyers, is, do you feel safe in your environment? Safety was a really big deal. And does the layout actually work for you? And if it doesn't, where do you want to be? The other thing that came up quite a bit is outdoor spaces, because it was very nice to be able to sit outside and work. or be able to get your kids outside safely without having to go to a park. And so all of those, I think we took into consideration to help our buyers and our sellers figure out, okay, if you don't want to be in this space, where do you want to be and what's important? And to help them figure that out for themselves.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We've got part 2 coming up next. Catherine will have that interview here next, right here on Talking Fitchburg.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it. So follow guidance from authorities where you live and do your part. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit any social gathering. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
Brandon met a girl on a dating app. He finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving.
She must be a keeper.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. We're continuing our interview with First Weber and the Fitchburg Historical Society as they've been documenting what's been happening since COVID-19 outbreak had begun. And that interview, part 2 now, starts up.
Not only looking at what people were doing, but also what they wanted, what their new life almost was like, checking in with them on that, because that drives how you want to live, which is really, I guess my next question was just asking about what apartment renters and homeowners were looking for in terms of their living arrangements. And I know you've touched on that already, Pam. Anything else, like how spaces would be arranged? You mentioned the outdoor spaces, having more space for work and children doing their schooling at home. How does that make a difference in how you arrange for your home to look?
Well, one thing we found is it was always okay for, prior to COVID, to maybe double up on your workspace and your entertainment space. That was always all right, because you didn't actually work there necessarily. So you would just clean up your workspace if you're going to entertain. And but now that wasn't so much the case. They weren't entertaining, but they needed this permanent workspace. And did they want their permanent workspace to be at the dining room table? Because it's just not a smart move to do that, because you never walk away from work. And so it's always a reminder of, oh, I need to get this done. And so it just wasn't a good environment for people to live in. And we all saw a surge in desk selling and, different types of furniture being sold so that you'd have either a small desk, a large desk, a more permanent workspace, or children having a small desk that they could work in their room, so that way children could still be in their room and sleep in their room, and parents could continue working and they weren't hearing each other speak. And so while they're all on their computers. So that worked okay for a while, but what we found is most parents realized, my children are never leaving their bedrooms. And that's just not a good idea. And so for those kids, and so they need to be able to walk out of their bedrooms, and they need to have a family environment that everybody can walk away from work and walk away from school and just be in a neutral space. So that's where we have found we've kind of gone that direction now, that when people are looking at homes, they want this neutral space, but then they also need their workspaces. And that's kind of the perfect spot if they can afford it and make it work. So we're seeing Dining rooms, not so important anymore. Big kitchens, still very important. The family eating space is very important. The amount of bathrooms is very important. We're seeing an uptick in bathrooms. 2 is always great, 3 is better. Where it used to be, well, 1 is fine. We're only home, between 5 and 9 p.m. and that we're using the bathrooms. And now, people are home all day and everybody's using the bathrooms. And so that's become a big, important thing. Garage space, not so much. That's not as important as it used to be. But patios, porches, covered porches, screened in decks, play sets in the backyard, those are all very, very important again. They kind of lost their thrill. 2 years ago, a buyer would come to town and they'd say, I want to be able to walk to shopping stores and the grocery store. I don't want to drive. Well, that's kind of gone away. That's not important anymore. It's a matter of, okay, I don't mind driving. I kind of want to be further out in the country. I want my own space. I don't want my neighbors that close. So we're starting to see a different trend. And also because they didn't have to be in the city, because they didn't have to drive every day to work. What we did run into, we've ran into this for many years, but it's became more obvious in COVID, is you get outside of Fitchburg and even in parts of Fitchburg, we do not have proper internet. And that's not being fixed very quickly. And so you could be right outside of Verona and you don't have proper internet. 2 people can't be on a computer at once. You could be in a $700,000 house, $1 million house, and you don't have proper internet. So it has absolutely nothing to do with what you can afford. It's not a socioeconomic situation. It has everything to do with the fact that we need to improve our internet in the state of Wisconsin, and certainly in Dane County.
It's so interesting, Pam. You really have insight through your work and people's lives, how they lead their daily lives, don't you? I mean, it's really all of these things you have mentioned have to do with our real daily lives. And
yep. Yeah. Being a realtor is really interesting. I'm sorry. I think I absolutely lost you there.
Pam, yes, just for a second. Can you hear me again? Good.
Yep, I can hear you again.
Great. Well, I wanted to ask you about the scarcity of homes for sale and the high cost. We all know the high cost of housing these days. So what are the factors involved in this seller's market? And has COVID been responsible in any way for this current market we're in?
Well, the one thing COVID has been probably responsible for with the current market is that we all realized at the same time whether our living spaces were going to work for us or not. That became very apparent, pretty much all at the same time. But otherwise, no, I wouldn't say that COVID is responsible for our lack of inventory. Our lack of inventory is due to many years of a lot of things going on. Between 2008 and 2012, we had an overabundance of inventory, mainly due to the fact that because in 2008, a lot of people realized, okay, I've overextended myself due to the way that they were purchasing homes. They had 100% down. In some cases, 110%, they had no money down. And they even got money for closing costs. So they had no skin in the game. And that was a lending problem. And we have since then fixed that lending problem. So that's not an issue any longer. But what took place is somebody buys a home and they have no money down on it. And they're basically paying the mortgage, which could also be considered rent as far as they're concerned, because they could walk away from that house at any given time. And yeah, it's going to be a bump on their credit, but that was it. And so they weren't losing any money there. And so it was easier for a lot of people to actually walk away from their home than it was to need to pay for a mortgage that they couldn't afford, and because maybe they lost their jobs, to downsizing in companies and so forth. And so in 2008 and 2012, we had an awful lot of inventory on the market. And so our current builders just stopped. They just stopped building, and because they couldn't sell them anyway, because we had so many houses on the market. And many of our builders in Dane County had been building for many years, and they'd been through more than one downturn in the economy, and they didn't want to do it again. So they just said, I'm done. I'm walking away. I'm done building. And we really didn't fill that pipeline of builders. We still haven't filled that pipeline with builders. And so between 2012 and now 2021, across the entire United States, this isn't just Wisconsin or Dane County or Fitchburg, it's across the entire country, that we have probably underbuilt 1 million homes a year since 2012. So we do not have enough housing, and we won't have enough housing for a long time when you base it off those numbers. And because we still don't have enough builders, and we also don't have enough product. We also don't have enough lots. So we need more development. We need more builders. We need to get our hands on product, and we need to keep building. And so Dane County has always been an expensive place to live. And probably what we would call affordable housing would be an apartment. And we all know our apartments aren't cheap. You know, you can get a 2-bedroom apartment from anywhere between $1,100 to $2,000 a month. Well, boy, that's not everybody can afford that. And so and we got apartments going up everywhere, but we truly do need more housing. And so it's going to take a while to get there. You know, we will get there eventually. It's not going to be a year or two. It's going to take a while. And so right now, at this moment, this snapshot in time is probably a good time for buyers to be buying, because the interest rates are still low. There's always fewer buyers in the fall than there are in the spring. And so if you want to get out there and get a nice house without paying 10% more than you should, this would be the time to do it. And so, you know, but what we're going through, we're going to continue to go through for a period of time. And so it's not going to fix itself soon.
All right, there you have it. I appreciate Catherine conducting this interview, and we'll be taking a quick break, wrap up the show next. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be flood. Next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day.
I have no time for this.
So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Wrapping up the show, I want to thank Catherine from the Fitchburg Historical Society and Pam from First Weber being a guest for Catherine, for Historical Society, for Talking Fitchburg. That's a story right there. All right, as we wrap up, you can catch that interview and more interviews and all of our great programming here at Fact TV. We got you right there. Just stay connected. It's easy. We'll see you out there.